Today's photo is looking down on one of hundreds of concrete pours, this time into the shaft of a vertical steel I-beam, all of which is part of the retaining wall just above the bus lanes. If you look closely, you can see the viscous concrete sliding down the chute. There were some opinions given as to what the black cable hose coils are. Besides post-pour stress cabling, there is the idea of electrical cabling to be embedded in the walls as part of the school utilities. The third idea has to do with drainage, exactly where you might want it. In looking back on today's activities, two things stand out. The first is the arrival and use of a small four-wheeled vehicle. This navy blue puddle jumper arrived on the scene in the early afternoon. For the next half hour, it seemed to be going every which way, carrying messages, I guess. It seemed to be performing a useful function. Then it left and wasn't seen again. The other is about one of the old excavators. I watched as it struggled to move a large blob of concrete, within which was encased a very strong, large pipe. Although difficult to do, he succeeded in the move down the ramp to the junk pile. Then, like a seagull trying to break a clam open by dropping it from a great height onto rock, the excavator was dropping a very large rock onto the big blob to break it up or to break the pipe off. It didn't work, but eventually the rock broke, not the pipe and the blob, which were just left in place, slightly blocking traffic flow. I think that if I were the driver, I would have given up sooner. The pic shows the large rock just as it strikes the concrete blob. After a beautiful sunrise, the big pour started on the north-south wall. It lasted all morning. The long blue delivery boom left when the pour was completed. There were more vehicles on the pond field today than ever. Part of the reason was the digging of a trench and laying the very blue-green pipe to take off any stormwater drainage from the big vault to be constructed under the south end of the football field. The third photo shows how long, or tall, some of the retaining wall I-beams are. This one is about to be lowered into the just drilled shaft, and then the concrete is poured around it. I'm guessing that about half the crew is working today. The photo, taken by Lynn, shows the three excavators in the lower left corner passing the buckets of dirt, starting from the bus lane level on down to below the car level. Then the bucket loads go into the dump trucks and then to the bulldozer to be spread onto the developing playing field. More specifically today, to fill up the gully on the right side of the field. Each round goes higher and higher. The big blue boom arrived early, signaling another big pour day. Incidentally, if you look closely, you can read Legion of Boom on the extended tentacle. The first photo shows a pour into a footing on the other side of the wall. The workmen spent all day dismantling the forms for the wall. Two of them used scissor lifts to stand on rather than have to cling to the wall forms. The field continued to be slowly raised, one dump truck at a time. The gully on the far south edge is all but filled up. The last photo shows an oops, not a big deal, but the trailer half of the dump truck tipped over again. The trailer was quickly righted with the help of another vehicle. The big construction event for me today was seeing the removal of the forms from the north-south wall. The first photo shows the big crane taking one of the form panels to be reused on the soon-to-be east-west wall. It is first cleaned right after being dismantled from the north-south wall. In the photo, it looks like it is itself made of concrete, but that is just a thin layer dust of concrete. Also in that shot is the unloading of long beams off of a flatbed. That's done with the adjacent crane. The second photo is of two concrete mock-ups. Being in the business of building mock-ups at Boeing, I figured concrete mock-up was an oxymoron. Yes, they make sense. As explained by Bruce, Issaquah wants to see what a particular decorative treatment for outside walls will look like in sample form. After deciding one way or another, the two headstones will be removed. The third photo shows the unloading from the truck with the turquoise cab, treated lumber for use in the retaining walls. It will be cut to length and fitted between the vertical I-beams. There it was, the first school bus. I believe it took a wrong turn and found itself in a time warp that brought it to the school way early. Should be September 2021. But then another school bus arrived, but it didn't stay long. Another happening was a traffic jam that occurred when the driver of a long flatbed truck decided not to back out into traffic on Tallis Drive, but rather drive on in. He had just unloaded several small but heavy packages at the main gate. He successfully drove on in and turned around, but ended up at too much of an angle to go out through the small passage between the vertical beams. I finally took a picture of the tank truck that goes around on dry days like this and sprinkles water to keep the dust down, thereby making life here at Timber Ridge even more enjoyable. P.S. A note regarding my explanation yesterday of the mock-ups on Tallis Drive. The judges who will vote as to aesthetics of the surface of the terrace walls are residents of Tallis, such as the Architectural Review Committee of the Tallis Residents Association. Issaquah wants them to have the say-so. The appearance of several rebar columns was noticed today. These should carry a load like a slab floor. Either wooden forms or iron cylinders will be placed around them, and then the concrete poured around the rebar. See the attached photo and arrow. There is a lot of resolution, so you can zoom in, way in. The buses mentioned yesterday came at quitting time and picked up several workers to take them to their parked cars somewhere on school district property. This day started with every task being worked on except the rebar workers. One of their primary jobs is to hand wire or wrap crossing every rebar everywhere they intersect. They finally got started, but late. One activity that we had not seen before was the covering of the planks in the slots of the retaining wall beams. The material was very black and acted like tar paper. The first photo shows that activity. A group of 8 was provided and or were providing a tour of the site. They are in the second pic. Also in that pic is an excavator loading rocks into a long trailer. They will be removed from the site. Somebody said that the contractors were lucky the ground here is not like in the east, almost nothing but rocks. The little runabout vehicle left today on a flatbed and a well-used forklift handler was replaced with a new one. Yes, the whole idea of getting to watch a school being built is neat, like really cool. But the main thing that is happening today is having everything looking in order at the end of their overtime Saturday day. More than any other day, it looks like all is neatly in its proper place. Notice the dump trucks, all in line, incidentally, all used today. See the outdoor warehouse, rows and aisles almost. Like by the time this is sent, there will be a large clear space in the north end where there used to be a bit of greenery. Incidentally, what at first glance looks like 2 mud puddles in the foreground are actually several galvanized beams, not neatly stacked. The 2 missing corners on the panorama are our balcony railing. Thanks to Steve, I can show you a pic of the morning meeting. I think they'd need a lot of these to know what their job assignments are. Was surprised to see dirt being removed from where it had been compacted on the field. My guess is they needed that kind of dirt in the pond area, and it was easier to make it first by adding this dry cement and then place it. The third pic shows a form panel being removed from the wall. If you look closely, you can see a green arrow. The workmen had a hard time prying it loose from the concrete. It will be cleaned somewhat and placed to form another wall. The last pic shows where the pond used to be. Well, from this angle, it looks missing. I took the first photo because the field, for a short time, looked as if there was to be a very short landing strip provided. The next photo, taken from Cascade East, our dining room, shows how much rebar and 2x4s are used to build a building such as our school. The rebar I knew about, but not the quantity of long 2x4s. An 8-footer is about $9 today. I wonder how many houses could be built with recycled middle school lumber. You can see on the far right photo, the third photo, there is an excavator cutting into the bank where the workmen's cars used to be parked. There was a lot of other stuff there too, porta potties, construction materials, etc. So where to park now? For about a week now, there have been 3 buses in the morning and a like number in the late afternoon. I'm guessing that they pick up the workmen at some Issaquah school property place where there is plenty of space to park and then get delivered back there after work. I believe they are staggered at approximately 30-minute intervals. A lot of dirt from where they parked is now dumped onto the football field. If they cut much further, it looks like they may have to refill the space at a later date.